Hey guys, number one Marmaduke fan here, and it's time for another Manga review in the beautiful outdoors on a sunny day. So we're looking at the manga Shakespeare of Midsummer Night's Dream by Amulet Books and illustrated by Kate Brown. So the manga style, it isn't quite as florid and detailed as a lot of shoujo manga books. But Kate Brown's style really grew on me because she brings in a lot of Art Nouveau influences, which makes for some really intricate and well designed page compositions. So if you're interested in seeing an artist doing an Art Nouveau look in comics, I think that's a pretty fresh idea, and it's a good fit for the subject matter. So this gets a recommendation, both based on just kind of like very faithfully translating Shakespeare's dialogue into a comics format and giving it a kind of, it's a very girly style, but that's actually a good fit for the subject matter. So the theme of this video is Shakespeare kicks ass, and I'm sorry if you had a bad high school English teacher who made Shakespeare boring for you, but you've got to go back and actually not read Shakespeare. You got to watch Shakespeare, because when you think about it, he wrote plays, and then the rich people would sit up in the boxes, and the poor people would stand down at the bottom of the Globe Theater and watch this stuff, and they'd watch actors perform it. So it's actually really appropriate for comics, because he doesn't write like reams and reams of prose describing the scene. It's just character speaking, right? So Shakespeare's perfect for movies, Shakespeare's perfect for television, and he's perfect for comics. And then the other thing is, if you're just reading a big heavy book of Shakespeare and trying to imagine it, what I think a good performance of Shakespeare is supposed to do is it's supposed to bring it to life for you a little bit. So if you're struggling with the English language and the beautiful poetry Shakespeare's writing, but you see a beautiful young man and a beautiful young woman looking at each other with big beautiful eyes, then you get, oh, okay, they're in love, right? It's like it becomes easier for you. And then the second reason that Shakespeare kicks ass is he pays attention to people, which means as soon as you get past the old English thing, his characters, I just see his characters everywhere in fiction. I kind of see Berserk as a continuation of Shakespearean ideas. I see a lot of goofy shoujo romances as a continuation of Shakespeare's ideas. And so I'd say the big idea of Midsummer Night's Dream is when young people are young and in love, they're kind of endearing in a stupid way. Like, you can tell that Shakespeare paid attention to teenagers being young and in love, and he kind of found their stupidity charming in a way, and that's the romance he sees. So you can't separate romance from comedy. The second neat thing, they actually kind of like did a smart idea and made this on the cover of the book. Love looks not with the eyes but with the mind, and therefore is winged Cupid painted blind. So Shakespeare also has these big ideas in addition to this fun stuff that just never stops being fun because it's human. Love sees not with the eyes but with the mind. Well, that's an interesting idea. Well, think about it. When you're young, stupid, and in love, do you look at your significant other objectively? Do you see their flaws, or do you only see their perfections? Like, when a young man is in love with a young woman, whatever her type is, that instantly becomes his type, and he can like magically see how beautiful she is, right? Now, if he ever falls out of love, or it all blows up in his face, then that's one of the reasons it's so tough, is because everything you saw about the other person was through the lens of your love. And kind of an interesting theme of Midsummer Night's Dream is, if in Romeo and Juliet the young, stupid, in love kids cause trouble and kill themselves selfishly because they're idiots, Midsummer Night's Dream is more the optimistic side of that. And there's some really neat connections between Midsummer Night's Dream and Romeo and Juliet. So kind of neat thing number one is we get a few pages of just introducing the characters. So that's great, because you got to keep the characters straight, and there was some attention paid to kind of keeping all of them visually distinct. And then jumping ahead, so here's an example of the comic artist helping to translate something. So Hermia loves Lysander, but Demetrius loves Hermia, and her father wants Hermia to marry Demetrius. But Demetrius, he's kind of an inconstant young man, and Hermia is not the first girl he's gone for. The first girl Demetrius went for was Helena, right? So Shakespeare's setting up, it's almost like that goofy meme where everybody's in love with the wrong person. But this is the setup before the magic fairies come in and the love potions and chaos ensues. So we're sort of our hero and heroine, Lysander and Hermia. They're the young, stupid, and in love couple, and we're kind of rooting for them. So Theseus, the king of the Greeks, says, well, Demetrius is a worthy gentleman, and Hermia says, so is Lysander. So this is an example of a line that's simple. It's 3 words, but it has a lot of weight. In that is sort of Hermia's innocence and her devotion to Lysander. And so what you see the artist here doing is giving her like a moment's pause before she says the line. So one of the endearing things about Shakespeare is when he writes women, he does have a what would have been an Elizabethan view of gender roles, where he definitely sees the gender roles as something that exists, something that's created, and something that he thinks is actually sweet. And at the same time, he writes women who have personality, who have souls, who make choices. So if you look at Shakespeare through the feminist lens and just complain about, oh, well, why are all the girls property, patriarchy, you're going to miss something that Shakespeare's doing, which is actually respecting his heroines. His heroines have something going on between their ears, essentially. It's almost like, I think what I always get back to is the feminist strong female archetype is theoretically strong, but she has nothing going on with her. She's just like a flat cardboard cutout copying the male super duper strong action hero protagonist. The Shakespeare female character, who often just sort of meekly accepts, yeah, I'm a woman, I'm weak, this sucks. Often they have very strong personalities and strong motivation. So in Hermia and Lysander's case, it's just very sweet, a sweet, simple love between these two. I also like how there's a framing device of a love story within a love story within a love story. So Theseus is betrothed to Hippolyta, the queen of the Amazons, a very strong warrior woman. They're older and they're getting married, and they're witnessing this love story between these young and stupid people. And you can tell that Theseus is kind of unhappy that the father's forcing his daughter to marry someone she doesn't want to marry. But he's the king, so he's got to enforce the law, right? The law of Athens is if she doesn't submit to her father's will, he can either have her put to death or she must swear an oath of chastity. Theseus gives her till the next moonlight to make a decision. So maybe he feels sorry for her, so he's trying to stall for time. Maybe he thinks she's a stupid kid, so if I give her time, maybe she'll think about it and come around to her father's view of her own volition. We don't know too much about what's going on inside Theseus's head, but we do get some insight into him later. So he's stalling for time, and Hermia and Lysander decide they're going to make a run for it. Now, Helena, who is in love with Demetrius, who is in love with Hermia, she and these two girls were best friends when they were little girls. But now that they're grown and they're teenagers and boys are coming between them, well, now they're totally catty to one another, especially Helena, who is accounted a beauty, but if the man that she is in love with doesn't find her beautiful, well, that's all nothing. She feels like a big, tall, ugly, skinny reed compared to Hermia, right? So what's beautiful about this is how many teenage high school romances have you seen that have followed this pattern, where not only are there's the young, stupid, in love couple, and that's screwing everything up for the awkward teenage girl who just feels like a ugly bag of bones now, right? Shakespeare's nailing the teenage drama of it. Hopping ahead, so in addition to Theseus and Hippolyta, who are sort of the upper class king and queen, we also get these working bums, blue collar type people who do theater, and it's a play within a play. And there's a lot of great, almost fourth wall breaking humor. So the Nick Bottom and the other actors are preparing to put on a play, and what's clear from their dialogue is they have no clue what the play's really about. They're going to mangle it and censor it because they're afraid the ladies will be scared by the lion, or the ladies will be offended that the two characters die at the end. So they're going to butcher a Greek play. and there's also some neat things where like a boy is going to have to play the young female part, and he doesn't want to play the young female part. He wants to start playing the man's roles, right? So this is literally how it would have been performed in Shakespeare's day. So you can almost imagine him writing this stuff with, he might have even have worked with the actors and had some actors in mind, right? So the audience would kind of be aware, haha, there's a teenage boy playing the girl parts in this show. That's kind of funny. Shakespeare's almost lampshading that by having the actors in the play within the play. And some of this stuff is very blue-collar kind of humor. The guy's name is Bottom, and he's going to get transformed into an ass, or translated into an ass, right? Like 6-year-olds would find that funny. And any illiterate person coming to see Shakespeare at the Globe would have thought that was amazing and seen themselves in these characters. So we have the young lovers and we have the blue-collar workers running off into the woods where they encounter the fairy. And in Shakespeare, the fairy are not cute little Disney pixies. They're dangerous, they're immortal, they're kind of far away from us. And even when they don't mean to harm the human beings, even when Oberon is actually trying to help out the human beings a little bit, it's sort of like, because the fairies are not human, it's sort of like they're inherently dangerous, or inherently something where if you get mixed up with them, you're going to have like an adventurous, dangerous time with them. So there's a mysterious element where Titania, the queen of the fairies, has a changeling child who she says is the son of a woman who was part of her order. And some of it's a little up in the air. We don't quite know for sure if he's a human child or if he's maybe like a fairy child who's been exchanged for a human child. But really what's most important is that Oberon and Titania are arguing about this child. Titania wants to keep the boy by her side forever. Oberon wants to take the child and make him a knight. That subplot actually doesn't get too much development, or it's just sort of in the backdrop. It just gives Oberon and Titania a reason to have an argument as a couple, right? So again, the couple theme is getting emphasized. We've got the young, stupid, and in love couples chasing the wrong person around. We've got the older couple who are waiting to get married. And in the fairy forest, we have marital difficulty between the fairy king and fairy queen. And there even seems to be a mysterious parallel between them and the older human couple, where Oberon admits that he was once in love with Hippolyta, and Titania admits that once she was in love with Theseus. There's maybe even a way where the two of them might parallel or symbolize Theseus and Hippolyta. But basically, Oberon gets together a love potion, and chaos ensues. As if it wasn't enough to have young people having a stupid romantic love triangle, we've got to throw a love potion into the mix. I highlighted this as just like an excellent example of that Art Nouveau, kind of like use of simple geometry and kind of like two-dimensional decoration to really make some things pop. So this page I highlighted because when Lysander and Hermia make their run for it to escape Athens so they can get married, Demetrius goes in pursuit of Hermia, and Helena goes in pursuit of Demetrius. And this is just a great example of underscoring the really sexy, really identifiable gender roles. The wildest heart, not such a heart as you. Run when you will. The dove pursues the griffin. The mild hide makes speed to catch the tiger. So the girl, the dainty, the weaker sex, is chasing after the guy. And here you see the comic conventions, like the silly flomps of the girl chasing after the guy who wants nothing to do with her. Helena is very aware that she is the weaker sex, and she observes the irony that she's the one hunting after Demetrius. But unfortunately, the more she loves Demetrius, the more he hates her. Women were made to be wooed, not to woo. She's too clingy, she's too yandere, so Demetrius wants to get away from her as fast as possible. Out in the woods, we get Shakespeare. One of the neat things about Shakespeare is how the Christian worldview clearly informs his writing, and at the same time, he's a very saucy, naughty, magical kind of writer. Most famously, the Bowdlerized Shakespeare tried to strip out any kind of naughty stuff out of Shakespeare. So, out in the woods, Lysander tries to make make a move on Hermia, but he does so in a very smart and very poetic way. One turf shall serve as pillow for us both. My heart unto yours is knit, so that but one heart we can make of it. Then by your side no bedroom me deny, for lying so, Hermia, I do not lie. So a play on words. He's very poetically, very smartly asking Hermia, his true love, to sleep with him this night. Lysander riddles very prettily, but gentle friend for love and courtesy lie further off in human modesty. So what's sexy about this is they're literally running off to get married, and Lysander's eager to start the nuptial arrangements early. But Hermia, being chaste, pushes him off, even though she's kind of flattered by the prettiness of his game. So one of the points here is that if you're a young man and you want to have game, you got to be smart. You can't just like ask out for it. You've got to put it in beautiful, complimentary, poetic verse for the young maiden fair. Yet, in spite of her admiration of just how good he is at the game, she has to put him off for a little bit longer until they're married. Puck the goblin gets when he's sent to give the love potion to Demetrius, because Oberon wants Demetrius to get together with Helena. Puck makes a mix-up and he accidentally puts the love potion into Lysander's eyes, and Lysander falls in love with Helena. Oh no, now he's not in love with the girl he's supposed to be in love with anymore. Puck also gets up to some trouble when he sees the goofy acting troupe out rehearsing their play, and he transforms Bottom's head into the head of an ass. He translates Bottom to ass, and then Oberon, who's mad at Titania, wants to teach her a lesson by having Puck give her the love potion, and whatever she falls in love with, that'll teach her a lesson to obey her master, the king of the fairies. Right? Oberon's a very pushy sort of husband. And of course, Titania falls in love with a man who's an ass. Right? Now, this is kind of like the same theme. Love looks not with the eyes, but with the mind, now pushed to a comedic extreme. She's in love with a man whose head is that of a donkey. But when she's in love with him, all she sees is what she thinks she sees. She doesn't see him as a stupid country bumpkin anymore. She sees him as this magnificent object of her worship. Hopping ahead, so there's some neat stuff where Puck uses finger puppets to illustrate what his plan is, and when he runs around like imitating the voices of certain characters, he'll hold up the puppet. So that's some great stuff from the comic artist to visually translate some of the ideas. And then also you have the opportunity to do some visual gags, right? So now Lysander and Demetrius are both after Helena instead of Hermia. And so she climbs the tree to get away from them, and they're both tugging at her from either side. So this is a visual reinforcement of the comedy of the text. Now, another neat thing is, because Shakespeare observes human traits and human foibles, what happens when stupid teenagers start fighting each other for the same boyfriends and girlfriends? Well, one thing that happens is they start getting stupid and they start getting really personal. Helena assumes that this all has to be some cruel joke at my expense. When I turn my back, wink at each other. Hermia concludes that, well, Helena must have come in the night like a prostitute and bewitched Lysander somehow. There's no other explanation for why my Lysander could be chasing after the wrong girl. And there are a bunch of great short jokes at Hermia's expense. So they all make fun of her for being a short little dwarf, short stack girl. She makes fun of Helena for being a tall, skinny maypole. They get personal, because when you're young and in love and you're stupid, you get really petty and you get really personal really fast. So tremendous, excellent short jokes. Here's another thing where just the comic artist is doing something clever. So she gives Oberon a checklist of what he wants to do. A choir boy, drug queen, mock queen, a choir boy, which is great because this isn't in Shakespeare, but she just gives the king a little motif kind of to help us clearly remember what his motivations are. And really his motivations are that simple. He wants to have his way. Now, why did I mark this? I marked this because this is just a great example of maybe showing the parallel between the fairy world and the human world. Like that's some great stuff. And jumping ahead, so this is neat because after it all wraps up and the right people are in right with the right people finally, Theseus, when he sees that Demetrius is no longer in love with Hermia, he relents and says, all right, that's it. I'm overruling the dad. Now there's no point. So that kind of raises the question is, well, why did Theseus relent now? And why was he willing to override the father now? My take on it is he was kind of like just waiting to see if maybe things would work out fortuitously, and things did work out very fortuitously. Now that the love triangle is solved and the right guys are in right with the right girls. Look, the girls are best friends again because they don't have to fight about boys anymore. So we have to end this with a play within a play, right? So they present King Theseus with several plays he could watch, and he says, well, this isn't right. We're having a wedding. I don't want to watch something that's like a really serious drama or a satire keen and critical. And so the last option they have for him is a tedious brief scene of young Pyramus and his love Thisbe, a very tragical mirth. Well, wait a second, merry and tragical, tedious and brief. This is hot ice and wondrous strange snow. So the description captures his interest because this sounds like a contradiction in terms. How shall we find the concord of this discord? And the master of entertainment explains, well, it's tedious and brief because it's 10 words long, and it's 10 words too long. It's merry and tragical because it's a tragic subject turned into a farce by how poorly it's performed. And Theseus says, I will hear that play. So what's great about this is almost like you can hear a modern voice in this. He hears about the worst play that's ever been performed, and King Theseus needs to see this performed. It's exactly like going to see The Room or watching something ironically, just of how much cheer you'll get out of how terrible and how cheesy it is. And Hippolyta, the Amazon queen, doesn't get it. And Theseus kind of like insists, no, give it a chance and let's see how it is. Again, the artist gets to underscore the absurdity of it all with like the illustration of the silly costumery and the actors breaking character and when they're supposed to be dead. So I think this is a continuation of the love theme. In the love theme, when you fell in love with someone, you saw them not as they were, but you saw sort of the image of what they are in your mind. It kind of you see your love as the goddess of beauty, especially a young man. A young man sees the woman he's in love with as a goddess of beauty and in his own mind. When they watch this absurd play, Theseus loves it because even in something this absurd or this amateurish, he sort of sees a glimmer of beauty or of something better within it. The best in this kind are but shadows, and the worst are no worse if imagination amend them. Moonshine and lion are left to bury the dead. So the upper class, the higher, the noble king and queen, see even in like this goofy, silly death scene performed by amateurish actors, Theseus in particular sees something noble and beautiful even in the ridiculous and the buffoonery of it. And also you can't help but notice that there's a strong parallel between the play of, what is the Greek play? Pyramus and Thisbe and Romeo and Juliet. Pyramus and Thisbe, one of them seems to be dead, so one of them commits suicide, then the other wakes up and then realizes their lover committed suicide, so they committed suicide. So Shakespeare's saying this tragical subject matter is made a comedy by how badly it's performed. And you almost can't help but wonder, like, if there was a connection between that and his Romeo and Juliet, which follows the plot of Pyramus and Thisbe, but also has the same kind of raucous comedy that he would bring into raucous, blue-collar, naughty potty humor comedy that he would bring into not just his comedies, but all of his plays really have that element of the blue-collar humor to them. So, Midsummer Night's Dream, it's a goofy shoujo romance, and props to Kate Brown and Amulet Books. They underscored that element of it. So, very faithful to the original play. I would strongly recommend it because I strongly recommend Shakespeare, and Kate Brown's art, in addition to doing a good job of translating the play into visuals, also adds this lovely sort of shoujo manga, sort of Art Nouveau inspired 2D lovely ornamentation to it that I think is a really good fit for the tone of the original. So, high recommendation. With that, I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. I love you guys. Shakespeare kicks ass, and I'll catch you later.